During World War II, U.S. Navy sank a total of 2,128 Japanese ships, including 2,117 merchant vessels used for civilian trade and transporting cargo. The methods of attack included mines, land-based aircraft carriers, and, notably, submarines. Submarines proved to be the most effective method for targeting Japanese merchant ships, excelling due to their stealth, ability to operate undetected, and capability to launch surprise attacks on unescorted ships. The question arises, why didn't Japan take adequate measures to protect its merchant fleet? Despite the availability of effective defense strategies, for example, during the Battle of the Atlantic, the Allies successfully defended their ships from German submarine attacks by organizing them into convoys, escorted by warships. Japan's failure to protect its merchant fleet remains a significant point of analysis, especially considering the strategic importance of these ships in sustaining their war efforts. It raises the query of why Japan did not implement similar defensive strategies to safeguard their merchant fleet. Japan's failure to protect its merchant ships during World War II can be traced back to a strategic oversight that began in the early 20th century. Despite the historical evidence showing that merchant ships could be safeguarded from submarine attacks, Japan focused more on offensive naval strategies and less on defensive measures. This can be attributed to lessons learned from Japan's victories in the Sino-Japanese War 1894-1895 and the Russo-Japanese War 1904-1905. During these conflicts, Japan's Navy played a vital role in securing victories by emphasizing large-scale fleet battles. This focus on offensive fleet actions became the foundation of Japan's naval doctrine, leaving little room for developing defensive tactics to protect merchant vessels, which were crucial for wartime logistics. Japan looked to the British Royal Navy and its advanced naval modernization efforts in the early 1900s. Meanwhile, Germany was bolstering its navy, and during World War I, it introduced unrestricted submarine warfare, targeting all ships within designated war zones. Despite witnessing these developments and participating in World War I on the Allied side, Japan remained focused on offensive strategies. This failure to adapt to the changing nature of naval threats left Japan without effective measures to protect its merchant fleet from submarine attacks. When World War II began, a critical vulnerability that the U.S. Navy exploited. This strategic oversight ultimately had significant consequences for Japan's role in the war. This excerpt discusses the evolution of Japanese naval strategy from the late 19th century through the early 20th century, focusing on key lessons learned and missed from wars and emerging technologies. Initially, Japan emphasized offensive fleet actions, large-scale battles involving groups of ships over defensive measures, such as protecting merchant vessels. During World War I, Germany introduced unrestricted submarine warfare, which led to significant losses for the Allies. The British countered with the invention of depth charges, an effective anti-submarine weapon. While Japan observed these developments, they did not prioritize anti-submarine warfare. ASW, reflecting a broader cultural emphasis on offensive tactics for glory rather than defensive measures like safeguarding merchant shipping. After the war, tensions with the United States and Russia prompted Japan to strengthen its military. However, limited resources forced a division between naval and army budgets. The Navy focused primarily on building offensive capabilities, such as destroyers and battleships, in preparation for possible conflicts with the US and Russia. Defensive strategies like ASW and shipping protection remained low priorities, influenced by Japan's aggressive military, culture, and resource constraints. This lack of prioritization of anti-submarine warfare had significant consequences, as Japan's leadership assumed that their victory and defeat in potential conflicts would be determined by fleet action, specifically battleship versus battleship, rather than the losses on merchant shipping. This oversight eventually led to substantial shipping losses for Japan, highlighting the critical importance of defensive measures in naval strategy. So here's the thing. The Japanese Navy knew they didn't have anti-submarine systems, but they didn't do anything about it. Before the Pearl Harbor attack, a senior officer stated that they needed to build new ships every year to win against the U.S. However, they were prepared to bear the loss of hundreds of thousands of tons of shipping each year. The High Command knew their merchant shipping was vulnerable, yet they didn't take action to address it. The strategic policies of the Japanese Navy were decided by the Operations Division, with little emphasis on protecting merchant shipping. In comparison, Britain had a strong system in place to safeguard their shipping with a dedicated escort group. When Japan attacked America in December 1941, they were officially at war with a country that had a strong industrial capacity. Japan lacked industrial capacity and anti-submarine systems, but initially they were winning in the South Pacific. However, by April 1942, it was clear that their merchant shipping was under attack from American submarines. Finally, they created two escort groups for anti-submarine warfare, similar to Britain's convoy system. So the lesson here is that prioritizing the protection of merchant shipping is crucial in naval warfare. It's a fascinating topic, especially for Navy enthusiasts. Naval ships were once the protective bodyguards of merchant ships, defending them against threats such as submarines. However, submarines proved to be a formidable challenge, as they could not easily attack merchant ships. The convoy system implemented to safeguard merchant vessels was not entirely effective, nor completely successful. Before the convoy system, launching 40 ships would typically result in only 15-20 ships reaching their intended destination, with submarines sinking approximately 20 ships along the way. The development of radar technology and improvements in the convoy system led to a more optimistic outlook, with the expectation that out of 40 ships, 36 would safely arrive and only 3 to 4 would be damaged. In fact, there was an acclaimed movie released in 2020 starring Tom Hanks that depicted the significance of the convoy system. If you happen to know the name of this movie, kindly share it in the comments. Recognizing the convoy system's effectiveness in anti-submarine warfare (ASW), Japan established two escort groups. However, it proved challenging, as these escort groups had insufficient ships to make a significant impact in ASW operations. 2 years after the war began, in November 1943, Japan formed the Grand Escort Command (GECQ), a dedicated section to safeguard merchant shipping. This was a significant and solid step towards protection. However, its effectiveness relied on allocating ships and resources to this department, which the Japanese Navy had prioritized for their combined fleet until 1943. Finally, in mid-February 1944, the Japanese Navy implemented the convoy system. Initially, they achieved success against American submarines, leading them to believe that the convoy system would save their merchant shipping. However, the U.S. introduced the Wolfpack tactic, where numerous American submarines would attack convoys simultaneously. Once again, GQ lacked sufficient destroyers, ships, and resources to effectively protect their merchant shipping. Consequently, the Japanese Navy suffered from rapid losses in their merchant fleet. Over time, the Japanese Navy realized the critical importance of the convoy system. However, they continued to prioritize resources for their combined fleet, hindering the development of their anti-submarine warfare capabilities throughout the war. In analyzing the entire situation, it becomes evident that the Japanese Navy placed greater emphasis on their combined fleet during the war, promoting the idea of the significant role big fleet battles played in establishing heroism. But no one was paying attention to this. No one was thinking about how it all connected. If we delve into the deeper reasons behind this lack of awareness, we find that it is somehow related to human psychology. In a typical battle scenario, when two sides clash and one emerges victorious, it's easy to determine the winner and the loser. However, when a battle stretches on for an extended period, it becomes increasingly difficult to establish who is gaining ground and who is falling behind. Tracking and following such battles becomes a daunting task. Take, for example, the Japanese Navy. Whenever they triumphed in significant fleet battles, the public rejoiced. Conversely, if they suffered defeat, the public mourned. What nobody realized was that for years, the Japanese Navy had been consistently losing in anti-submarine warfare (ASW). This crucial information eluded everyone's knowledge. It wasn't until the war concluded and the economic impact of commerce became apparent that the Japanese government finally admitted their defeat. They confessed that they had lost the war because they failed to protect their shipping. The underlying truth is that we tend to focus on the visible, tangible outcomes of battle, often overlooking the less apparent factors that can determine victory or defeat. Only when the repercussions become undeniable do we fully grasp the gravity of the situation. This example serves as a reminder that the complexity of warfare extends beyond what meets the eye. It demonstrates how our understanding can be incomplete, highlighting the importance of delving deeper and considering the hidden aspects that ultimately impact the outcome.